I'm happy to welcome you to the first ever BAI Soulcast, our brand new podcast, which we hope to make available every week. An opportunity for members of our community to share ideas, music, thoughts, poetry, all kinds of stuff. And it's my great privilege to start us off. This is Rabbi David, by the way, coming to you live from my basement. And today want to spend some time talking about a couple of things that come up in the parashah this week, in the Torah reading for this week, interspersed with a little bit of music and we'll dig right in. How about that? So, do want to share with you this great piece of music that just heard. It's called Kezohar Harakia, like the glow of the firmament. It's a piece performed by two Israeli singers, one named Yonatan Razael and the other named Barry Sacharov. One from Jerusalem, one from Tel Aviv, one secular, one religious. And give it a listen. The lyrics come from the Talmud. It's actually a Talmudic prayer that, among other things, expresses the hope that your words will be words of wisdom and words of truth. Enjoy. Catch you on the other side.
לבך יהגה תבונה, פיך ידבר חוכמות, לשונך ירחיש רננות, עפעפיך ישירו נגדך, עיניך יאירו במאור התורה.
שפתותיך יביעו דעת, קילותיך תעל אוזנם ישרים, פעמיך ירוצו לשמוע.
דברי עתיק יומין, פניך יזהירו כזוהר הרקיע, כזוהר הרקיע. פניך יזהירו כזוהר הרקיע, כזוהר הרקיע. יביעו דעת, כליותיך תעל אוזנם ישרים, פעמיך ירוצו לשמוע. דברי עתיק יומין, פניך יזהירו כזוהר הרקיע, כזוהר הרקיע. פניך יזהירו כזוהר הרקיע, כזוהר הרקיע.
Talmudic words are these. Olamcha tireh b'chayecha ve'acharitcha l'chayei ha'olam haba v'tikvatcha l'dor dorim. Libcha yeget tfuna picha yidaber chochmot u'lishoncha yarchish renanot. Roughly translated, may you live to see your world fulfilled. May your destiny be for worlds still to come. May you trust in generations past and yet to be. May your heart be filled with intuition, your words with insight. May songs of praise ever be on your tongue, and your vision on a straight path before you. May your eyes shine with the light of holy words, and your face reflect the glory of heaven. What I love about that prayer, among other things, is its focus on the words that come out of our mouths. May your heart be filled with intuition, your words with insight. Songs of praise ever be on your tongue. We do a lot of talking, and the Torah is actually filled with rules about how to talk, when to talk, what one can say, what one shouldn't say. I want to reflect for a little bit on one of those rules that is in this week's parasha. The heads of the Israelite tribes, the Matot, Rashei HaMatot, that God has commanded the following. If a man makes a vow to Adonai or takes an oath imposing an obligation on himself, he shall not break his pledge, lo yachel dvaro in Hebrew. He must carry out all that has crossed his lips. It's pretty clear. And there's a parallel verse in the book of Deuteronomy. You must fulfill what has crossed your lips and perform what you have voluntarily vowed to Adonai your God, having made the promise with your own mouth. We live in a world filled with talk, right? Talk is cheap. It's a staple of our common culture. And these days, perhaps more so than at any time that I can remember, words really seem to have lost all value and meaning. Statements made on Monday are contradicted on Tuesday, then restated or reversed on Wednesday, day after day, week after week, hour by hour. Words are spoken and written, it seems, to achieve certain effects, to rile up some, to appease others. Such criteria as truthfulness or accuracy or intent to follow through seem increasingly irrelevant. Say or write whatever you need to in order to get to the next moment, and never mind the consequences. There's another layer, I think. When words are merely instruments to accomplish immediate goals, concern for both the past and the future go by the wayside. Only the present matters. History lands in the dustbin, and tomorrow serves as just another opportunity to employ soothing or motivating or infuriating words in a brand new present. The Torah, both of those verses that I just shared with you, and our tradition that follows from it really argue otherwise. Perhaps the phenomenon we know from our current moment existed in ancient Israel as well. Perhaps ours is not the first culture to allow and even to celebrate the use of speech as nothing more than a tool of persuasion. Perhaps human nature has always treated talk as cheap. Perhaps. But the Torah really couldn't be more clear. When you take a vow or an oath that involves an obligation on yourself, that pledge must be kept. In both of those verses, both in our parsha and in the book of Deuteronomy, the Torah actually says it twice. In our verse, he shall not break his pledge, lo yachel dvaro, he must carry out all that has crossed his lips. Talk is not only not cheap, it has real and abiding value. As one interpreter, the Sfat Emet, puts it, the mouth that the Blessed Holy One created in people was created only to speak God's praises and greatness. Therefore, all that comes out of your mouth, you must do. But let's dig a little further. The early rabbis noticed those repetitive phrases both in our parasha and in Deuteronomy, and they derived a fascinating rule. The reason that the thing is repeated twice is to teach us that our mouths and our hearts should align. That's a beautiful lesson. Your inside and your outside are meant to match. The words that come out of your mouth ought to reflect what resides in your heart. How often do we say things that we don't really mean? Or mean things that we don't really say? Until your mouth and your heart align, teach the rabbis, you actually haven't said anything at all. Or, as Maimonides summarizes the principle 1,000 years later, the rule among us is that the conclusion of one's heart should emerge from one's lips. Mean what you say what you mean. Rashi's comment on our verse pushes that whole idea even a little bit further. Lo yachel dvaro are the words in the Torah. He reads yachel as chulin, and even transposes chulin, which means commonplace, to something like chilul, which means desecration. Make sure your words do not become a vehicle for desecrating God's name. Speech, write others, and the power of speech is holy. Torah came to us in spoken words. The world is created by words. And so words badly used can destroy and do harm. Words, well used, can build and create and heal. Like you, I've been thinking a lot about the Deshaun Jackson misuse, terrible misuse of truly hateful words over these last number of days. You may have seen his Instagram post, which was a quotation from Louis Farrakhan, in turn a quotation or a citation of none other than Hitler. And the backlash, fast and furious, prompted the Eagles star to retract his words. And in that retraction, which was an apology, he said something like, I didn't really intend those words that I used. My heart and my words, in other words, were not aligned. So let's take that at face value. And he misspoke or used bad words or the wrong words. Didn't really reflect what was in his heart. That's the lesson that our tradition, that the Talmud really means to derive from our verse and from our parasha. Heart and words are meant to align. And if the words that come out of your mouth are not aligned with what's in your heart, they don't even count, said the Mishnah. It's as if they were never said at all. I don't mean to suggest that we should let Deshaun Jackson off the hook. I don't think we should. He needs to be held accountable, and he has publicly apologized and committed himself to educating himself, to using words better going forward. And we need to keep an eye on that and make sure that that, in fact, is what happens. So I want to share with you one more teaching. The Sfat Emet, the great 19th century Gerer Rebbe, teaches that the mouth is the most inward of all of our limbs. All the breath and the inward self come out as we open our mouths. That's why the mouth needs special guarding. That's why this mitzvah to speak properly, to align our words with our hearts, requires full-time duty, day and night. Because the opening of the mouth needs to be so guarded. The very root of a person's life is in that inner breath. Guarding this stands at the root of all one's deeds. The rest of our deeds all depend upon guarding the mouth. How we speak determines everything. Our mouths and lips serve as the point of connection between our inner lives and the outside world. And that's why we need to guard them. Our mouths and our words. In this week, we've entered into a period on the Jewish calendar that's known as Bein HaMitzarim, between the narrow places. It's a 3-week period from the fast day of the 17th of Tammuz, observed this past Thursday, and the fast day of Tisha B'Av, which is a couple of weeks ahead of us. It's a wonderful lesson, I think, for us in that period of time, to really focus in on how we speak, on the words that we use, on aligning our hearts and our words to the best of our ability. All of that from just one line in Parashat Matot in this week's parasha. Get out with another piece of music. But before I share it with you, a little bit of setup for it. I mentioned earlier that this week's Torah reading is actually a double parsha, a Shabbat when we read 2 parshiyot. The second parsha is called Mas'eh, which means travels, and it details all of the travels of the Israelites during their 40 years in the wilderness. It turns out that over the course of that 40-year span, the Israelites camp at and leave from 42 different places. For fans of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, that number, of course, is obvious because 42 is the answer to the meaning of life, to all of the deep and difficult questions that we face. 42. So there it is. 42 stations, 42 tachanot, 42 places where the Israelites land and from which they depart over the course of those 40 years. It's their journey, of course, from slavery to freedom. It is also, say many commentators, our life journey, which is to say that each of our life's journey actually stops at 42 different places, unfolds over the course of 42 stages. And at each of those stages, we're actually called upon to gather up sparks, bits of light that were left over from the original creation of the universe. And at each of those stages in our lives, there are specific sparks that are there for each of us. We make our own way from bondage to freedom, from slavery to liberation, over the course of our individual lives, just as our people made that journey over the course of those 40 years in the wilderness. I have a lot more to say about that journey toward freedom, and it is, of course, the burning issue in many ways of our moment and of our time. But that'll happen in weeks to come. I want to leave you with this one last piece of music. Rhiannon Giddens' remarkable rendition of the great song Freedom Highway is coming your way. And just want to thank you for listening in and for being part of this first ever BAI The Soulcast. Many more to come over the weeks ahead. Get out with another.